call this District of Tofino regular council meeting for May 26, 2015 to order at 10 a.m. And first ask for a motion to adopt the agenda, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor McMaster, seconded by Councillor Blanchette. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. And a motion to adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting held May 12th.
Moved.
Thank you, Councillor McMaster, seconded by Councillor Thurgood. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. No business arising from the minutes. Just a couple of brief announcements from me. First, we have a volunteer appreciation tea this Thursday from 3 until 5 at the Clackwood Biosphere Trust offices. So, of course, everyone is welcome. And the District of Tofino is co-hosting this with the Biosphere Trust. And the second part, building on that, we today are making the call for nominations for our next intake of for volunteer service or volunteer recognition award. And so the close will be Monday, June 15th at 4 p.m. So for the next 2 and a bit weeks, we'll be soliciting nominations from the community for deserving people to be recognized for their volunteer service. And that's it. So moving into delegations, we have one today. Ron.
Just one?
Just one, and it's you.
Whoa.
So come on up.
Oh, I mean I gotta get up. Oh.
You do, you have to get up. You have up to 15 minutes to tell us what your ideas are, and
Okay, well,
let's
like you
hear it.
guys want to beautify Main Street,
Mhm.
you want to attract more people here, right?
Mhm.
And it's not going to do it just by doing what they did on this street, right, Campbell Street, right? I mean, that's not, because like just the other day, this street was polluted with people, right? And there was nobody on Main Street, hardly, right? So if you want to get people to go down to Main Street, you have to build an attraction. You have to make them want to come down there. And I want to build a great big huge lighthouse. And so if you were walking down here, right here, and you're walking down, you're walking down, and all of a sudden you see this lighthouse, you're gonna go, holy shit, look at the lighthouse down there. And you're gonna flock to Main Street, I mean flock. And if you look in the paper, or in the internet right now, there's 500 lighthouses for sale in the States, and there's like 250 for sale in Canada right now. They don't want them. So we can buy all the parts and have an authentic looking lighthouse. And it doesn't matter if it's new, because like the inn, I built the inn, right? I'm not trying to brag or anything, but you stand in front of there on a sunny day. I've never seen anybody take more pictures than any place in Tofino. Not trying to brag, but I don't see them taking a picture of the McQuina or anything like that, right? So like you got to make it a tourist attraction to build. And so we can get all the parts on the internet, like they're for sale everywhere. So we can get an authentic top and everything. And so the back of the lighthouse, when you're on Main Street looking down, you'll see it like a lighthouse, right? And there'll be no windows or nothing in it. It'll be this big honking lighthouse. But then on the ocean side, I want to make some condos in the lighthouse. And so from the back of it, the people looking at it, they'll think it's a lighthouse for sure, but it doesn't matter if it's new, because they think the inn is the first building in Tofino, and it doesn't matter if as long as they're taking a picture of it and showing, wow, look at this old inn or something like that, or wow, look at this lighthouse. It doesn't matter if it's new, because they won't know that. And when they walk around the front, they're gonna go, holy shit, this guy made some condos in this old lighthouse. And they can leave it at that for them. They don't have to know it was just built a while ago or something like that. But to do this project is a super heavy duty project, right? Like really super complicated, a lot of bullshit, a lot of trouble for me to do, right? And I'll do it, or try, because I gotta get, some rich guy, like the guy who did The Wolf and the Fog, right? I gotta hook onto one of them first, right? So this is just an idea that if you guys went, wow, that's a great idea. I mean, if you're going down Campbell Street and you see this great big huge lighthouse, you go, holy shit, look at that lighthouse, right? And they'll flock to it. And we can do two things. The base of it, we make this beautiful solid base, and then the base of the lighthouse will have this granite thing around it to make it like super handsome and that. And we'll get all the parts from all this so it'll look authentic. And shit, I forgot what else I was gonna say. But anyways, oh yeah. So like the thing is, if you guys go, wow, that seems like a great idea, I'll do it. But if there's like, well, Ron, I don't know, what about all that crap? I don't want to hear any of that crap, because I'm building we're building a monument, we're building a tourist attraction, right? And the more tourist attraction, and everybody loves lighthouses. Like they have this poster in the coffee place down there, all this. I was gonna bring it just to show you guys, like lighthouses are in. And it doesn't matter that there's condos in it, because they're gonna go, oh wow, they took that old lighthouse and they made condos in it. But from the street, if you don't walk by, you'll never know there's condos in it. From the street, from out Main Street, you'll take a picture, the whole back will look like a lighthouse. The only time they'll tell is when you go along the ocean, because there'll just be like a little lips like that of the floors like that. I don't know how many you can do. It depends how high you guys would let me go, right? I mean, I think you should make it big, right? Like forget about the height thing and all that, right? I mean, it should be as big as it should look to, so when you're going down here that you sort of see it through the little paths. Plus, if you put condos in it, right? Here's a thing that's like a lighthouse, that everybody thinks is a lighthouse, but it's condos. Everybody says to me, oh wow, the shore, right? Ugh, why'd they let that go? There's condos, but you know it's condos, right? You know what I mean? And you see what it is. This is, we can fool them from the back. They go, oh, it's a lighthouse. And they can leave it at that if they don't go down, right? And if they go to the water, they're gonna go, wow, the guy turned this old antique lighthouse into condos. How cool is that? So that's my idea. I mean, it's way bigger than what this project for me is really big, right? This is like serious dough, and you know, it's like a big thing. So for me to get creative and want to get in there, oh yeah, another thing I just remembered. So when we build this lighthouse, then you guys want to make that whole development on the water, so people walk on the water. That foreshore, if you guys go to the fisheries and help me get the foreshore in there and fill it in, then we can make like a little park there. We can have picnic tables. You know, people come down. Oh, I forgot other things I was gonna say. So the base of this thing, right? We can either put in like a little coffee shop, which I don't want to do, or we can put the museum. They've got a place, they need a place for the museum. What a perfect place for the museum. And this little pad I want to build around, we put this big, all the big heavy metal shit, you know, like that harpoon shit and all the people, and all these people that got all this crap in their yard and this cool stuff, they can start bringing it down there because they don't even want it anyways. People bring all kinds of stuff from my place now to put up in there, right? Mike White and his brother, they just brought me their train set from when they were a kid, and I just looked at the Star Weekly, and it's 1959. And so you know, people bring, so people got some cool stuff to lay around it, right? And people go down there and they go see the lighthouse, they see, oh, look at the museum there, perfect, lighthouse, museum, go great together. I mean, I'd rather not see a museum there, right? Just because whoever's gonna invest in this thing is probably wanna see something at the bottom to make them a bit more dough. I'm just saying a museum, so you guys go, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, you know, just calling you a bit. I got. So, anyways, that's my idea, right? And I've been talking to a lot of people, and a lot of, you know, whether they say it to my face, oh, what a great idea, and then they turn out like a jerk, that guy, right? Usually, right? So anyways, that's what I wanted to do, and if you guys think it's a kind of a cool idea, I mean, if you want to attract people to Main Street, you got to make something. You can't just, you know, fix the road up a bit and put some more stop signs and all that shit, right? You gotta make something that when they go by, they see it. I mean, everybody loves a lighthouse. You know, who doesn't love a lighthouse? You know, very romantic, very beautiful, right? And then it's you know, there'll be some condos on that place, but it won't be an eyesore. You know, like, you know, everybody says the shore's an eyesore. I don't really care because there was a big ugly fish factory there before, right? So it doesn't really bother me, right? And I don't care. It's not my, if they want to do that, that's their trip, right? But you know, it would be a pretty cool thing, right? And I think anyway. So what do you guys think, huh? So anyway, what do you guys? What do you think? I mean, just off the top of your head, do you think it's a good idea, or? I mean, maybe you're not allowed to say that right now without talking to your friends here. Well, should we let them or not? So anyways, I'll
Thank you.
I'll go though, but I think it's a great idea.
I love your passion.
Well, you see, to do something like that, right? I mean, you know, I'm trying to beef up Main Street. I spent 20 grand on totem poles that for everybody to see, right? Mm-hmm. You know, of our dough, right? So you know, we're in the trip, right? We're in the groove. We want to do it. You just gotta let someone like me go, right? To create, right? I can't create when there's all that crap, right? You know, it's just, you know, and there's all that, you know, this where's the parking gonna be? Okay, I'll go. Anyways, bye you guys.
Thank you.
Here's my water. Huh? Hey Ray, let's go have a beer after, huh? Okay, bye you guys.
That's it, you're out of here?
Well, is anything more to say? I don't know, I just wanted to tell you.
Let me ask council if anyone has any questions.
Yeah. Like, hold it.
Councillor Blanchett?
Is anybody dead against it? That's what I'd like to, yeah?
No, I'm just wondering which answer you want, the water or the reason, but I am.
You don't like lighthouses then?
I love lighthouses where they're located in remote places and so on, but I like process, I like the way things get decided, I like the effort that the community makes in terms of looking at and how they want to see an area developed and planned. One of the things that they really love about Main Street is its history and how that gets expressed as being worked out, but also the view, the incredible view. So I'm not, you know, I know there might be other elements of the plan, but what you're putting on the table is actually a development. And, you know, there's a whole process for that. If you want to develop condos, make an application. If you want your structure to look like a lighthouse, that's part of your application. But there's nothing that I can do at this table today that says, oh yeah, great idea, but...
Well, I knew you were going to say what you're going to say anyways, Dorothy, so that doesn't bug me at all. I knew you were going to be like that anyways. Yeah. Well, I mean, you told me I bullied my way into get everything in the end. Well, hey, if you go to... Yeah.
I think you're getting confused.
No, that's what you said, and if you go by the inn, I mean, you know, it's one of the nicest buildings in town. I don't think that, but that's what everybody else thinks, you know, and I got a lot of hassle doing that. So, you know, like, you know, you got to be a bit creative, Dorothy. You got to, you know, you can't just sit there and go, well, you know, like how you're doing. I mean, that's what I don't want. That's negativity, right? That's like, you know, we want to get people on Main Street. You got to get your, you know, you got to get something to draw them there, you know. And a lighthouse, you know, a lot of people don't see a lighthouse because it's stuck on the middle of nowhere. Like, a lot of people like to see a lighthouse. They're very in right now. Lighthouses are very in. They're like an endangered species. And if we can create a brand new one that looks old, hey, duh. And if we can put some condos in it without looking like it, duh. Aren't we?
So
Isn't that a lot better than making a great big shore?
We got another question over here, Councillor Blanchett.
Yeah, I'm also excited by your passion. I'm having a hard time getting my head around the scale of this project. When I saw your application for delegation, I thought lighthouse, oh, a nice little kind of thing with a flashing light on top. And now there's condos and stuff. So
well, no, I mean, a lighthouse isn't just a little lighthouse. You want to attract people here. What do you want to do? Make it this big and everybody walks by and don't see it? I mean, you got to make something that someone sees. So when they're driving down there, holy shit, look at that lighthouse.
That's
you got to blow their mind. You got to blow their mind to get them down here. You know, you can't get them down here by just putting a bunch of old beams up there that are all moldy and all that. You can't do it. You got to make something that people go, wow, and they take pictures of and they go, you know, and the back of it will look like a lighthouse, so no one's going to think it's even condos in it. We just, you know, you can't build a great big lighthouse and not put anything in it. You know how much it's going to cost to build a great big lighthouse and do it authentic? Wow, this is like super, you know. So you got to make something in it to get the dough back.
Have you talked with any architects yet?
No, I mean, I got to talk to you guys.
I want to see a picture of what this is going to look like from.
Yeah, well, you see the thing.
Here. And from in front of your
of course, right? But the thing is, I ain't gonna go start making pictures and doing all that crap until I know that you guys are all like 100% like stoked like I am on it.
Well, I can't get 100% until I know what I'm getting 100% about.
Well, I mean, your imagination just see, you know, big lighthouse there. I mean, right on Wharf Street, Main Street, lighthouse. Coast Guard right next door.
So you're thinking right down on the waterfront.
Yeah, right where that little house is down there, and you know, like that. Yeah, and then you know, it's condos without anybody seeing their condos, and it's a lighthouse. And so, you know, we're doing two things with one. That's a great idea, right? I mean, I think it's a fantastic idea. I mean, I don't even know if I can pull it off because how much it's going to cost and how much bullshit it's going to be to do. But I mean, once some beautiful lighthouse is made there, like this is going to be a 1940s, a replica of an Art Deco lighthouse. It's going to be an art piece. And people are going to go by and they're going to go, holy shit, is that ever beautiful? You know? And that's going to attract tons of people to Main Street. I mean, they drive by here and they look through the thing and they can see a bit of a lighthouse. They're going to go, I mean, they're going to flock to Main Street. I mean, I could pollute people down there if you just let me, you know. Anyways, I'm getting mad, so I'll go.
Okay, thank you, Ron.
Bye.
Bye.
Be like the giant hockey stick in Duncan. Okay. All right, we'll move on. So we have some correspondence for information from Jaqueline Chamberland at the Pacific Rim Art Society regarding support for the PRAS Summer Festival, and that is on our agenda later. So this is just a letter outlining their request.
Receive that?
Move to receive. Thank
Second.
you, Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Thurgood. Any questions or discussion? All right, I'll call the question. Oh,
sorry.
yes.
Closing off Campbell Street is a kind of a unique idea.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering if staff have touched base at all with businesses and stuff?
We're going to be discussing a special permit for that, this exact thing,
okay.
yeah, on, later in the agenda, so
Okay,
we
sorry.
can probably ask those questions later. Good. Okay, I'll call the question then to receive the correspondence. All in favor? Thank you, motion carried. Okay, so moving into reports, the first one we have is a verbal report from Councillor McMaster on the meeting between the District of Tofino and surf school operators regarding parking and visitor impacts down at Chesterman Beach.
Okay, well, we met with representatives of 7 of the surf schools in town last week, and as a way of introducing the topic, we related the issues that occurred on the Easter long weekend. So there was general agreement between ourselves and the surf schools that no matter how much parking you put in at Lynn and Chesterman, it'll never be enough if the weather's good and the surf's up. The surf schools, we agree, are part of the problem, but they're not the major part of the problem. And this parking issue really began when the National Park instituted charges for parking. This issue has been further compounded by the fact that now parking charges have increased from per vehicle to per person, and also the cost of gasoline has gone up. The schools themselves have tried to alleviate the problem by staggering the times of their lessons. However, some of them admitted to parking all day in fear of that if they actually moved the vehicle, they wouldn't get a parking spot again. So suggestions from the surf schools, and then these are in no particular order, was to have better access to Mackenzie Beach. They felt this would relieve some of the pressure on the Chesterman area. We pointed out to them that Hellison Drive was going to be paved this year. However, they pointed out that there still was a need for parking to be improved down there. Paving over the culverts along Lynn and Chesterman was brought up. I think everybody realised that this would be really expensive. However, we feel that this needs to be explored, whether it's a culvert and grate system or a catch-based system, so we're ready in case we ever decide to repave Lynn and Chesterman Road. The question of the planters on Osprey Lane was raised, as this restricts or complicates parking on Osprey Lane. This issue has been brought up since 2011 and still nothing has been done. So the request still stands that those planters be removed. It is our road. They brought up the issue of buses occupying parking spots, not only in the car parks but on the road. This is in reference to out-of-town schools coming in, or from the universities where they bring a bus load of people to go surfing, and they felt that the buses should just drop the people off and go and park elsewhere, possibly at the tourism centre. Surprisingly, the issue of paid parking was raised. Schools themselves would be prepared to contribute for designated spots, and they also thought that paid parking was probably an ultimate solution to controlling parking down at the beach. Obviously we should look into some form of residence permits for people to park down there. They all agreed that better enforcement was needed. They raised the issue of capping the number of surf licenses for schools in the area. They stressed that better signage could help, not only for no parking, and I mentioned that we're supposed to be getting some new signs made. And the thing that's happening in a few weeks is quite a lot of people that have no idea of north and south, and there's a lot of people wandering around parking lots thinking they're in the North Chesterman parking lot when they're supposed to be meeting the people down at the South Chesterman parking lot. So wondered whether people had any money in a signage budget to perhaps put a sign on each of the washrooms. Obviously, parking lot expansion would be appreciated. I said we would look into Solwood, there was complications. It was felt that the rocks at North Chesterman complicated matters, and we could get a few more spots in there. And South Chesterman has always been deemed to have more space if it was organised properly. So in summary, you know, no magic solutions, but I think it was a great meeting. I think the schools appreciated the invite and were happy to be involved. And we said we would have another meeting in September before Thanksgiving. And again, I'd like to reiterate the surf schools are just a minor part of a larger problem.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor McMaster. So Councillors Bart and Anderson were also at the meeting. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, just a couple of things, maybe you mentioned them, but did you talk about Howard Drive? I don't recall hearing that.
No, it's surf just apart at Howard Drive.
Yeah, they talked about using that area. And the other things they mentioned, one of the things that Chrissy mentioned is that they will do a count. So maybe toward October, when it makes sense to do a count, they'll figure out what's happening with surf schools and what that impact is, just to have it as by way of information. But they also talked about the fact that the rentals are a huge part of the parking demand. But so too are weddings and vacation rentals with overflow parking needs. We're definitely part of it. The capping of the license came up a lot, and also the conversation about pay parking or the schools paying for some kind of reserved space, or just various things that with residential permits, and then fees for commercial use would be something that they would be receptive to, if it meant that there was some management in a way that assured that they would have some kind of parking, and then like there would be 4 or 5 spots that would be reserved for surf schools or that kind of. Did that?
Yeah, I think if the idea of a count happening, say, on the Thanksgiving weekend, I think that would be a case of, although they would participate and help, I think we would have to organise it. They were sort of proposing that they could produce a coloured sticker and put it in on the dash, and then someone could go around and say, well, okay, there's 10 spots occupied by surf schools and there's 90 spots occupied by other people. So that would take some effort from ourselves to go around and count at various times of the day.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson, anything to add?
I think they covered everything. I just would like to mention that it was iterated a few times how they looked, at least one surf school was saying how they looked at the situation in California, where surfing is much older and probably much more popular, but so there were several examples that were given about how parking is also an issue there, how it's managed by capping the number of surf schools in each region, and so there are examples out there to look at where we might be going, and so other solutions that might be applied here. So, and you sort of mentioned that surfing is becoming more and more popular. It's not going away, and it's particularly higher use in the winter when the ski hills aren't operating at full capacity, which was the case this winter. So we saw several weekends in the winter where the use on Lynn Road and was higher than normal. in other winters, and that's probably because the ski hills weren't operating. Also, it was mentioned when the surf is sometimes too big for beginner to intermediate level of surfing, so it pushes all the surfing onto Lynn Road, so that was another factor during this discussion. So that's what I would add.
Okay, thank you.
Just one final comment. One of the things was they expressed how much they appreciated the meeting, and it said to me that, we're, having discussions with some interest groups around things that we're trying to tackle or find resolution to, I think is really useful. If it, then comes back to council, so I'd just flag that as part of our communications strategy, is maybe some efforts to have some informative discussion.
Absolutely, thank you. Okay, Councillor Thurgood.
Were all the surf schools in attendance?
No, there was a few missing, but there was 7 there. I think there's a dozen surf schools in town.
Some
And
from out of town, like Ukiwa and stuff, yeah.
there were representatives from the Cuba as well, see?
I didn't
No.
catch.
Oh,
I
There
don't-
wasn't there.
And from the district, who was the 3 of you and 3
Just the
councillors?
3 of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No staff? No?
No stuff.
And, yeah, I think it was good. It's a good start. It's obviously a problem. I don't agree with that the vacation rentals are a problem or add to the problem of parking on Chesterman Lynn Road. When it's nighttime, you can go down there, nobody's parked on the roadway. And there's times parking in the parking lots. So I but that's just a minor thing. Yeah, I look forward to hearing more from the next meeting that comes up in September. You mentioned problems or logistics with the right-of-way behind Sullivan. Can you
Well,
expand on that?
I don't think it's well, A, it's designated parkland at the moment. B, it's quite boggy in there, and there's a narrow access as far as I understand, but I think we're going to look into it to see what can be done, if anything can be done.
Okay, yep, thank you.
In answer to your question about vacation rentals, I think that's more in reference to, I know myself, there's quite a few vacation rentals there where they're being used for a wedding. So the bride and groom will stay there, and then when the wedding is on, well, that's when there's a problem with vacation rentals parking, because you get a lot of guests and they've got to park on the road. So I think it's a combination of vacation
Oh,
and
okay.
wedding,
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
just weddings
probably.
on the beach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. It is really informative to hear all that feedback, and I couldn't agree with you more that those kinds of meetings are useful, and it's incumbent on us as mayor and council to reach out and do these kinds of things,
Well,
so.
just one
Councillor
thing is
Anderson?
that I did ask to what extent they might use the free shuttle
Mhm.
that's offered in the summer.
Mhm.
And it is used a little bit, but they mentioned that if it could be more coordinated, the timing with the surf schools, that they could use that more, so.
So they were asking if the shuttle times could be changed to suit them?
They weren't asking
or
for that,
they
they were
were
just pointing out that,
Okay.
that they can't always, it doesn't line up with their times of their sessions.
Right,
So it's something that they do use when they can, but it doesn't always work because of the timing.
okay. I'm sure we could work with their staff to make sure that they have copies of the schedule, and the schedule this year will be the same as it was last year. So hopefully they can work with that to some extent, and.
The issue with that was they stagger their lessons to alleviate the
Of
problem,
course.
and
Yeah.
then, so
Yeah.
that doesn't help with
Yeah,
the
of
shuttle. The
course.
shuttle goes at a certain time, so.
It's a tricky problem. Okay, thank you, everybody. All right, we'll move on. So our next report is on the permissive tax exemption policy, and a couple of recommendations from staff to amend the policy to bring it into alignment with the municipal term, and to change a little bit about the reporting being done to the district. instead of to mayor and council. Anyone wish to?
I would move
You
the
know-
recommendation.
Thank you.
Second?
So moved by Councillor Blanchette, seconded by Councillor Anderson. I'll read it out. That the permissive tax exemption policy be amended by deleting all permissive tax exemptions subject to renewal, to review and approval every 3 years. As part of the review and to be considered for renewal, each property must provide a report to council on or before July 15th of the year of the current permissive tax exemption, and be replaced with all permissive tax exemptions are subject to review and approval every 4 years. And as a part of the review and to be considered for renewal, each property must provide a report to the district on or before July 15th of the year of the current permissive tax exemption. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor McMaster.
Well, damn it, just Nyla. Why can't we approve this every year? Why do we have to do it 3 or 4 years? I mean, we do a budget every year, so why can't we just approve it every year?
So through your worship, Councillor McMaster, we have the ability to approve permissive tax exemptions for a period beyond 1 year. And the reasons for it is that it's administratively heavy to go through this process, not only for us, but for all the organizations applying for the permissive tax exemption. We're having to bring it to council every year, we're having to go through and approve it. So the organizations that are applying regularly apply year after year. We don't actively go out and seek applications for permissive tax exemptions. So in order to streamline the process and have a look at it, a hard look at it every 4 years, for example, we're not bringing it forward to council every year. Council does have the ability to amend the bylaw if the use of the property changes. So basically, we wouldn't look at this bylaw for the 4-year term if the property and the use of that property remains the same.
Councillor?
So you say you can amend it if the use of the property changes? Do we have the ability?
That was just an example.
No, well, I mean, do we have the ability to amend it if, for instance, we wanted to cut taxes?
If you wanted to. What's
If I wanted to cut taxes and not allow a tax exemption?
I think Councillor's asking,
Yeah.
we can amend the policy, we can amend it at any time. I mean, we can bring it back and discuss if in a future budget consideration, council decides to, for example, get rid of all permissive tax exemptions, we have the ability to do that within the 4-year term. But unless council brings it to the table or the use of the property changes, what we would be agreeing to is a 4-year
Okay.
term.
As long as we have the ability to change it every year.
Absolutely.
We do, we always do. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Anderson.
My questions was around the report. And I believe that's a new requirement, and also I'd like to know what sort of form the report takes. Is there a number of things they're supposed to cover in it, or is it?
So it's not a new requirement, but right now the reporting is all, according to the policy, it goes to mayor and council. What staff have recommended is that it go to the district of Tofino, and then I would say similar to the way grant applications or RMI event and support applications were handled, they go to staff collate everything and then bring it forward to council. The same process would apply here, but there is a number of things that people have to submit.
Is it an onerous process? I'm not sure.
I think what we just heard from our staff is that there is some administrative burden that's created by this, and to do it annually is just more staff time, and so the suggestion, last year we agreed to go to a 3-year rotation, and now we're being asked to consider a 4-year rotation because of the new municipal term length.
I was thinking onerous on behalf of the applicant.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
For both, it is, it is quite a bit of work to prepare the report each year, submit the statements, do the letter. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, it would, relieve us of some work internally and then with the organizations as well.
Councilor Barton?
I think when we moved it from the 1 year to the 3-year, the thinking was to have it dealt with within each council term. So now the council term is 4 years, so
So it'll come up again.
logically it would come back. My question would be, will we be dealing with it
this year?
This year or next year, and then after that it would be 4 years? Yeah, okay.
Correct, this year. Councillor Blanchett?
I'm just wondering, kind of the reverse of Councillor McMaster's, if a new church opens in town or, and asks,
Mhm.
do they have to wait until the 4-year term,
No.
or can they apply?
Yes, they can apply. Councillor Thurber?
Do we know how many, we do know, I shouldn't say, do we know? How many properties fall under the, currently fall under this exemption? And the dollar value?
So, for your worship, you'll be getting a report, likely in July or August, that's gonna outline all of that for you. I don't have those numbers with me.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Everyone clear? I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. All right. Next, we have a special permit application from the Pacific Rim Art Society for the use of Campbell Street between 3rd and 2nd for a free concert to be held on June 30th from 5 to 10 p.m. And they've been dealing with staff, and there's a recommendation that council issued a permit or authorize the issuance of a permit, and a number of conditions that are attached to it as normal. Oh, I'm so sorry, Councillor
That's all right.
Blanchett.
I'm going to step out, declare conflict of interest because of heavy volunteer involvement with this organization.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Blanchett. We'll wait to discuss after you leave. Okay,
I'll move the recommendation.
thank you, Councillor Anderson.
Second.
Second by Councillor Thurgood. Any questions? Yes, Councillor
Yeah,
Brown.
I just have the same question, although I think I must have been a bit rattled when I asked it the first time. If staff can tell us about any consultation with businesses in that street. I think there's only 2, but
Thank you.
So we have closed Campbell Street in the past, most recently for the Campbell Street Block Party, and previously for the Marathon and the Olympic Torch Relay, so it has been closed before. The applicant has to get a permit through the Ministry of Highways first. The district will post a public notice that the road would be closed for the event, and then the organizer would be responsible for communicating with all the businesses on that stretch. There are just 3 commercial properties, I think 4 in the neighborhood of 5 businesses there. The concert is also scheduled for the evening. The road would close at 5 p.m., so it's generally towards the end of the business day, and the concert starts at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Question answered? Okay. Councillor Thurgood?
I, along similar lines, I would like to see would like to have seen the homework done beforehand, not so much for the businesses, because as you state, it's gonna be 5 o'clock, particularly for the Campbell Street road closure. It's the residences which are limited. There's only 3 or 4, I believe, above the drugstore. I would like to have seen, and still would like to see, some input or feedback from those residents or from our staff, that they've been in contact with the residents. To go to approve this now and then go to the residents and say, and businesses and say, look, we're gonna do this, this event. Do you have any objection? The residences and or businesses may just say, well, gee, you've already decided you're gonna do it. Why do you want my input now? It's too late. So I would like to have seen that before we approve it, that's all.
Thank you. Councillor Wright?
Yeah, I think if I recall on that celebration of the Campbell Street upgrades, there was in fact a lot of consultation throughout not only the whole process, which did, test people's patience, but just the idea of the further street closure for the party, but it wasn't sort of out of keeping with what's going on. I like the idea, because I like the idea of just having a sort of car-free moment, but I just feel that if council approves it, them proceeding, that it's sort of subject to favorable consultations. I know that there are some people who would never say yes, so obviously we have to make the decision in the larger interest. I just like Councillor Thurgood would have been more comfortable knowing that, yes, there's been conversation with the businesses, and yes, there's been conversation with the residents as they have had a heads up, and understand that it's for a very short duration. But I'll go ahead and support it, but it's just, I am concerned about that as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, seeing no other discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. Thanks. Ivana, if you could just let Greg know. Thank you. Okay, and our last report is the Community Economic Development Advisory Committee, and there are minutes to receive, and then there are a number of recommendations. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped right past. I didn't mean to do that. How about the tender award for the Neill Street Watermain and 4th Street Drain? Bob's sitting in the audience going, what?
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor McMaster. Seconded by Councillor Bart. That the Neill Street Watermain and 4th Street Drain contract be awarded to Windley Contracting Limited for the amount of $264,670 plus GST, and that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to execute a contract in the amount of $264,670 with Windley Engineering for the Neill Street Watermain and 4th Street Drain project. Any discussion on this motion or questions? It's all clear? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. Now we shall go to the Community Economic Development Advisory Committee. So we do have a set of minutes to receive, and then we have a number of recommendations, and we'll just deal with them one by one, please. So first of all, the minutes.
Receive.
Thank you, Councillor McMaster, seconded by Councillor Blanchette. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. Councillor Bart, did you want to make any comments as chair of the committee before we?
Well, as chair of the committee, I can say that there's a sense that there have been a number of initiatives that have some sort of potency that we feel can't really get underway without at least getting some seed money to move them forward. So with the Chamber of Commerce, the Buy Local campaign has been something that the Chamber has had its eyes on for a long time, something we'd like to see happen in that kind of context of filling the gaps and at least give them a nominal support to proceed. And the other side of it, apart from the sort of action items for which we're asking council to support with some funds that have already been set aside, I think there's over 60,000 in the reserve. So the amounts we're talking about today aren't so high relative to that, but they're considered to be kind of critical to moving this work forward. The bigger piece is the committee feeling that there are a number of things that it's looked at over the time of its being in effect as a committee, and there are a number of threads that need to be pulled together and some action steps taken. And I think last night's strategic plan really illustrated that well, like where you take, what is the problem, where we want to go with it, and what are the action steps we want to take with it. And I think that what we're trying to do is kind of get all of those threads put together and a work and action plan for the committee to get underway. And so we're looking to support for that, because it really, it isn't work for volunteer at a volunteer level. It needs some focused attention. There's quite a lot of material.
Okay, so the first recommendation that came from the CDAC meeting was that the terms of reference be amended to remove references to summer and winter breaks in the meeting schedule. And I just wanted to let council know that I did have a short discussion with staff, and the CDAC terms of reference uses a standard approach that all the committees use that comment on not having meetings during the winter and summer, mostly due to staff resources and things like that. But it's certainly up to council if we wish to follow the committee's recommendation and amend the terms of reference. Jane?
I would just add that part of the standard meeting in terms of the frequency is that special council meetings may be called by the chair at any time.
Special.
And these are just regular meetings, so the standard terms of reference says that committees will meet a minimum of so many times per year. And that the committee should set a regular schedule for regular meetings at the beginning of the year. And that's so that we can give the public the most notification and also manage our resources in terms of having meeting space. We know that there's no regular meetings during July, August, and December, and that's because people are typically away, and in December the office is closed. However, special committee meetings may be held at the call of the chair. So certainly that committee is welcome to meet at any time over the summer.
Thank you. So that being said, I'm not sure, that it's critical that this be done, but it was the recommendation of the committee, and Councillor Bart could speak to it perhaps. But Councillor Blanchette, you have a question or comment?
No, you just did, you just
Oh,
said.
okay.
Yeah,
Councillor
I'm
Bart?
quite satisfied to say that the committee, we would set up meetings. I think what they're, really, the message is they want to meet more frequently.
Mhm.
Right now in the terms of reference, it's quarterly.
Okay.
So that was, and in looking at what they're anticipating, they'd like to see get underway. We're already in May.
Mhm.
They didn't want to wait until September for another meeting, for example. But there's no problem with calling a meeting. We'll just.
Okay, yeah. So in that case, we'll just leave that and move to the next recommendation. So the committee also had a recommendation that up to $2,000 of funding in seed money be provided to the Chamber of Commerce to support further development of a buy local campaign in Tofino. This money would come from the Special Projects Reserve, where councils of the past couple of years have put money away as a bit of an economic development reserve, if you will. Councillor Bart?
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to what I've already said about that is when we had looked at the strategic plan, which we haven't adopted yet as council, but in the action items and, support under economic development of the Chamber of Commerce to do this kind, economic development kind of work was what was one of the highlighted recommendations. So I think this is a small amount of money to put forward to kind of get a specific project that the committee has identified as of value.
Thank you. Councillor Blanchette?
Can I ask what some of the details of the project are, broadly speaking?
Yeah, the committee also, has asked the same question. We're feeling that it does need to be fleshed out more, and it could be that a recommendation be that there be a very concrete proposal around that. They did make a proposal to the biosphere, and it wasn't regional enough in scope, but there is a buy local program that exists and has a set of standards and action items that they're using as a template essentially to apply around here. I always like to work with very concrete examples and have asked the Chamber to come back to the committee with some of those, but they do have a plan and strategy. I just don't have it to hand it to you at this moment.
Has two major components, and one is promoting the purchase of products from local businesses, and the second is promoting the purchase of products that are made locally.
Yes.
So, yeah, so, and just like Councillor Bart said, there is a bit of a template, if you will, from local BC who the Chamber's been working with. And the idea of the seed money is recognizing that the Chamber's limited in its existing resources, that they needed a bit of a start to really flesh out what the whole program is going to look like, so that then it could be considered for further funding from us or the Biosphere Trust or some other organization.
So this $2,000 or up to $2,000 would be for time, basically, for somebody to develop a program?
Yes.
Rather than the purchase of or buy local bags. or
Correct, yeah,
advertising.
correct. So this is, I think this was the committee's way of saying, if you're gonna do it right, and
Yeah.
here, we're gonna help you get it together so that you can do it right, correctly. Okay.
Sorry, this is, we've already funded this committee to some extent, just money from that.
Well, we have provided a little bit of funding in the past to do the business walks program. That's all that that's the only resources the committee has used so far.
But we put 30,000, was it 30,000 aside 2 years in a row?
Yes, correct.
And that sits in a reserve.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor?
Yeah, I'm in support of the money, but I agree, I'd like to see a plan, and I realise you're not going to see a plan until we've given some seed money, but I'd like to see a plan by a certain time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm giving money, but I'd certainly like to see the plan within 6 months or something like
Right,
that.
okay.
Yeah, and sorry, if I may say,
Yes,
I think
of
that's
course.
really reasonable, and
Mhm.
to set out an expectation of a report and such. We do that with our community grants. It would not be responsible to, the taxpayers to
Mhm.
proceed with the money, even though it is in the reserve, and we've already identified it in the budget to have it go in. And we have those kinds of terms for arts grant funding, and other funding, but we don't really have terms for funds in this kind of category. So maybe we can make a motion to that effect, that with a status report and a work plan, within 6 months or something to that effect, or 8 months.
So what I would recommend then is, when somebody's ready to move a recommendation, you could add a clause that just stipulates that a report to the Community Economic Development Advisory Committee be provided within 6 months.
Which would then come to council.
Yeah, which would then come to council, but gives the committee a chance. Yes, no?
Could we also include a recommendation of source of funds?
Certainly, so that would be from the Special Projects Reserve?
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, I'll make the motion that up to $2,000 from the Special Projects Reserve be provided to the Chamber of Commerce as seed money to support the further development of a buy local campaign in Tofino, with a report to the Community Economic Development Advisory Committee to be provided within 6 months.
I've received funds.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, so moved and seconded. Any discussion on this? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. Okay. So the next recommendation, Councillor Bart, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, so I think I kind of spoke to it a little bit earlier. We're saying up to 5,000. The idea is that somebody would be contracted to pull together the work of the last couple of years of the committee and lay out this set of, where we are, where are we going, and what are the action steps that need to be taken in a very concrete way, thinking in reference to some of the things that are already in front of us, whether it's the V2A and the action items, the strategic plan we looked at yesterday, is my sense of recognition that, it needs to have a kind of focused, professional craftsmanship to go through these things and to lay out something that's a reasonable and workable plan that the committee can move forward with, and that needs to be resourced.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, I would say that in addition, the discussion was there are committee members who would be working with some oversight with the Chamber of Commerce in identifying who that person who would be contracted and setting expectations around the work to be done. I think Councillor McMaster,
Yeah.
James Costello, it's in the minutes.
And Brian.
And Brian Stevens. Providing the oversight.
Councillor Blanchette?
Would there be a stipulation that this be a local contractor? I get a bit concerned about the amount of money we throw at out-of-town contractors who come in, develop a pool of knowledge, and then just leave with it. And I'd like to see a local component to every effort of this, just so something stays behind. Is that intended?
Well, I argued against that. I said I wanted the best that was available. And hopefully it's a local.
Yeah, I think the intention is yes, but not to limit it to that if it means that the required expertise can't be found locally.
But given that we're working with the Chamber and supporting the Buy Local campaign, I think that there is a kind of an understanding and a commitment certainly from the committee that we look to what's closest to home, you know, in these kinds of endeavors. And it's I wouldn't say it's a secretariat kind of, it's more definitely at a higher level than that, but I feel very comfortable that chances are we're going to find who we need here.
And my other question is, I'm not clear on what kind of developing the framework is. Isn't, to my mind, that's kind of the committee's job itself to develop this framework, and then we run with the framework. So now the committee is recommending that we hire somebody to develop the framework. What am I not understanding?
I think the committee's coming to terms with the fact that it isn't resourced in the way that some of our other committees are. We don't have the expertise in community economic development amongst the District of Tofino staff, and I don't think the committee has expected that. But that in order for this committee to really tackle some of the scope under its terms of reference, that it needs some of that expertise to facilitate and move it together. And to expect the committee itself to do its own planning exercise, if it doesn't have the expertise on the committee, the committee's just continuing spinning its wheels. And I think it's recognizing that it needs, similar to the discussion we had last night around the education project, if there isn't a coordinator or a person with expertise who's hired to help move things along, things tend to not move along. And the committee is recognizing that it needs this help. Councillor Burke?
Yeah, and a parallel I would make, I don't, you know, we did the strategic plan discussions, but I don't think anybody at this table was going to go away and write that and bring it back in a way that we would then adopt it and so forth. We look to having some higher level, you know, oversight, expertise, pulling everything together so that it could come back to us in a way that was fruitful for us as re-looking at it and you know, being able to say, yes, we can move forward with this. I see a lot of parallels in that process.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson?
Does the districts, you know, still contribute to any economic development function at the regional district?
Yes, we do, through the regional district too, and the City of Port Alberni's Economic Development Officer, Pat Deacon, his services are still available to us.
Any idea what we spend there? I mean, at one point, the economic development, it was a separate entity, and then that was folded, and part of the support for that from Tofino about ending that was that money was better spent on our own in-house economic development fund. So I mean, I support this kind of, if that money just hasn't been moved yet, or in a sense, and just to give a bit of background too, that, and I'm wondering if this is only partially fulfilling that role or not at all. So, or I guess it depends on how much you want to bend your philosophical.
Let me try to answer. So I can't recall the total value of the ACRD's economic development budget line, but I can tell you that the District of Tofino contributed $5,000 towards that this year, and that every area plus a First Nation participated in this service. So that money then goes to, and when I say the District of Tofino, I mean the residences and taxpayers within the District of Tofino through their ACRD taxes have contributed $5,000. And that goes to the City of Port Alberni, and the Economic Development Officer then provides the regional district as a region some of his time and efforts, which he has already done so, and this probably primarily happens through my relationship through the ACRD and with Mr. Deacon. So for example, the next recommendation we're going to talk about is the Innovation Island. And this came about through a contact with Mr. Deacon. So he brings things like this forward that get fed into the Community Economic Development Advisory Committee. But I wouldn't say there is or could really be an expectation that he would come and provide secretariat services to the committee, for example, or that he would come in and do strategic planning, that it would eat up that 5,000 really fast in time and travel, basically. And he doesn't really bill on a per hour basis or anything like that. It's just it's a notional contribution, but.
Would there be, this contractor work with other economic development people like that in the region? Or I'm just wondering, I just don't quite know what this job does. Or are they just being the staff resource person for minutes and, you know,
So my understanding is that this particular contract is to really develop that framework or strategic plan almost for the committee and its work. It's not ongoing secretariat services, although that may be something that comes out of this that the committee wishes to consider if our own staff can't resource it the way that needs to be resourced. Okay. All right. So the recommendation is there, and I think the clause about being from the Special Projects Reserve is just what would need to be added. Would anybody like to move? Okay. And is there a seconder?
Second.
Thank you. So moved by Councillor McMaster and seconded by Councillor Blanchette that up to 5,000 from the Special Projects Reserve be released to support the Chamber of Commerce in hiring a contractor to prepare a framework to direct the work of the Community Economic Development Advisory Committee. Any final discussion? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. So the next recommendation from the CDAC is that up to $1,000 from the Special Projects Reserve be released to support a workshop series from Innovation Island in Tofino. And I could speak really briefly to that because I brought it to the CDAC committee. Innovation Island, there was a workshop in February down in Ucluelet, in which Innovation Island, which is a tech incubator coordinator nonprofit based out of Nanaimo, came out to stimulate a conversation on the tech sector and the creation of new businesses in that sector. And it was a really successful workshop down in Ucluelet. There was some follow-up with Innovation Island, and they do a series of workshops, a series of 10 focused workshops that the Community Futures out of Port Alberni has, Community Futures Development Corporation, CFDC, has paid Innovation Island. They've entered a partnership agreement for $10,000 to deliver this workshop series in Port Alberni and out here on the West Coast. So here on the West Coast, it would be this fall. And so what I brought to the CDAC was the idea that if the District of Tofino provided up to $1,000 to complement the workshops in terms of their promotion and providing lunch at the workshops, it would attract more. There's normally the Innovation Island charges a small fee, but at this series of workshops, they're not going to do that, so that it's open to everybody and there's no obstacles there. So the committee, the Community Economic Development Advisory Committee did make the recommendation after discussing it. Anything else to add from the councillors that were there?
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor McMaster? Seconded by Councillor Anderson. So moved by Councillor McMaster and seconded by Councillor Anderson that up to $1,000 from the Special Projects Reserve be released to support a workshop series from Innovation Island to Tofino. Yes, Nella?
Is that being paid to the chamber as well?
No. I'll, it's a little complicated and I'll let you know later.
Josie Osborne.
All right, any final discussion on that? Councillor Blanchette?
Do we have a sense for how much demand there would be for this workshop yet?
We are going to find out probably on June 5th, which is when they're going to have a bit of a 1 hour lunch and learn, they call it. So it's to drum up and see what the interest is out there.
Okay.
The workshop series is going to run in Port Alberni this spring first, and so that'll be a good chance too, I think, to start a conversation. With high-speed internet projected to arrive in Tofino in December 2015, what I'm really hoping is that we can see this pushed out to the community and say this is a way to, if you have business ideas that you want to come and work with an experienced tech mentor, basically, then this is an opportunity for you. And the workshops would take place between Tofino and Ucluelet over 4 different days this fall.
I'm just wondering, because I went to the Innovation Island event in Ucluelet, it was quite stimulating. I'm wondering if it, in order to drum up interest for a workshop, if an event like that in Tofino might be a good idea before we start talking about a workshop series.
That will be partly what the Lunch and Learn is. So there were more people from Tofino at that Ucluelet event than were from Ucluelet. So which already to me was a big sign that there's some interest. And then on June 5th will be this next Lunch and Learn event, which would be an opportunity for people to do the same kind of thing here in Tofino. It'll be a bit more focused than the event. The event in Ucluelet was kind of an introduction more. This will be much more focused and talk about the workshop series and what funding opportunities are out there for people who are interested in starting tech-related businesses. Okay, any final discussion on that? I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. And the last recommendation from the CDAC was that the District of Tofino Council consider seasonal worker housing when developing housing plans and strategies. Councillor Bart, did you want to speak to that a little bit?
I think that's already in our strategic plan. I think we just have to receive for information, perhaps.
Councillor Blanchett?
I'm wondering if CDAC has any picture or is developing a picture of what seasonal worker housing might look like. Because in my mind, there's a potential at least for it to sit empty for 4, 6, 8 months of the year. So is CDAC thinking campgrounds? Are they thinking dormitories? Or are they thinking anything specific at all?
There was a presentation that Dwayne Bell made to the committee, and my sense is that it will be housed with whatever housing committee gets set up, that it will be put in to that committee as part of the input. But his own vision was a managed campground, a kind of community campground with some form of trailer, container, or some such housing, purchased or leased by businesses and managed, absolutely. So, you know, there was nothing particularly new, I don't think, in his presentation to what's already been or being discussed. It's just a sense of the pressures, and of course we're waiting on the outcome of this housing assessment in one sense, but certainly the chamber, I think, is understanding its role of needing to keep that discussion as a high level priority among its members to find out exactly where things are at.
Okay. Did you wish to make a motion to receive it?
Yeah, I move to receive the recommendation that council, I'm just trying to get the wording here. Oh, I'm in the wrong agenda now.
The council considers seasonal worker housing when developing housing plans and strategies.
Thank you.
For information. Thank you. So moved and seconded by Councillors Bart and McMaster. Any final discussion on that, Councillor Anderson?
I'm just hoping that as chair, you will report back that it already is part of council's
Yeah.
vision, and
Once we adopt
that we
our,
are considering it in a few forms, because it almost appears that the committee doesn't know that from its recommendations.
I think the committee did know it, but they felt it was important. They felt it was important enough to say it again, and they made the recommendation. But thank you for that, Councillor Anderson.
and if we do adopt the strategic plan, then the message is clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. Right, that brings us to the end of our business for the open meeting and an opportunity for any members of the public to ask questions. Any questions? Oh, yes, Menno, please.
Regarding Ron's delegation this morning, came down to again that Main Street needs to attract visitors. This is a problem that is ongoing. My question really is, when can we expect to see the signage up from Campbell Street to Main Street? The last time I talked to the CAO on March 31st, I was told 4 to 6 weeks, and we're 8 weeks later right now, and there's still no signs up. So, and the season has started, and Main Street is lacking visitors.
Thank you for your question. Is there any comment, please?
I'll have to check on that and get back to you now.
But they were supposed to be up over 2 weeks ago already. The season has started, and nothing happens. This is an ongoing thing year after year, and I bring it forward to council, and it's being agreed upon, and then it's being said, yeah, we'll do it, and just nothing happens. It looks like it's going to be another season that is not happening. It's so disappointing.
Thank you. I sincerely hope it will not be another season. Okay. All right. If I could have somebody please make a motion to move in camera.
I move that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to sections 91AC of the Community Charter to discuss matters relating to personal information about an individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, agent or committee appointment. Secondly, employee relations.
Thank you, Councillor McMaster. Seconded by
Councillor
Councillor Bart. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried.